stream now. So please feel free to start the meeting when you're ready, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our JCC. It's nice to see you online. And we are going to start with declarations of interests. Are there any declarations of interest? None? Okay. Now, before we go into the agenda, I would like to pay a tribute to Loretta and Audrey Moore, two people who passed away.
Sorry, Audrey King, sorry.
Audrey King, sorry. Loretta is Jerry's wife, and Audrey King is a member of Long Thornton. She's a member of Faith and Belief and lots of other functions. So I would like us to have a 1-minute silence for them both, beginning now. Okay, thank you. You're on mute. You're muted.
Sorry, can I say something? Yeah. Audrey King is a member of Merton Seniors Forum as well. And I'm the chair for Merton Seniors Forum. I'll be attending a funeral tomorrow.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Chair, can I also say something? Can I just mention Mrs. D'Souza, who lives in Garden Avenue? She's a member of BME Voice and ADECO, and she passed away last Thursday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Can I mention her as well?
Oh my days. Sorry, what's her name?
Mrs. D'Souza. Hannah Neal, she's from BME Voice and also ADECO, and she plays a very pivotal role in BME Voice.
Okay, may her soul rest in peace. Okay, anybody else we should know that passed? Okay, now we move on to minute, apologies of absence, sorry. I have Councillor Adam Bush, who said he will be late. Councillor Bailey, who is absent today, and Councillor Hannah Neal, who is absent today. Any other?
Also, apologies from Slavek, Polish Family Association, and Simon Chimmins from Merton Connected.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all right. Minutes of the previous meeting, that's item 3. Are these minutes read and are they agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay. We move on to item 4, Fostering in Marton by Rosie Bailey.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Rosie. I'm the Fostering Recruitment and Publicity Officer for the London Borough of Merton. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk through fostering, why children come into care and what makes a good foster carer. And ideally what I'd like to do is just kind of, I suppose, put my face out there and then make links with your organisations. So yeah, as I said, I'm Rosie. I'm the Publicity and Recruitment Officer. I don't know, I'm going to take it that no one knows anything about fostering. So what fostering is it's a way of providing a stable family environment for children and young people who can't live with their birth families. It can be anything from one night to a number of years. And the nature of fostering is that you never know how long a placement might be. That said, if you're a foster carer, you could, for example, specialise in short-term or longer-term placements. And I suppose it's very important to say that a fostering placement is a last resort. We will always be looking to work with the birth families to stop a child from coming into care. But if it looks like for whatever reason the child can't remain at home at that moment in time, then we'd look for somebody in their immediate circle of family and friends. And it's only if we can't find somebody suitable that then we look for a foster care placement. And that's ideally in the local area, because we want to keep the children in their communities and at their schools. So that's that. And so, yeah, child will stay in a foster care placement until they either can go home, or they might move on to a longer term placement, or in some cases go for adoption. Merton has approximately 150 looked after children and 70 foster carers. We're a small borough. I've been working for Merton for 5 years, and most of the people I work with have been there for between 5 and 20 years. And that's the same with our foster carers. So it's a nice, stable place to work, and everyone knows each other. Unfortunately, though, my job never stops, because there's a national shortage of foster carers. And I think a child comes into care every 20 minutes. So we're always recruiting for foster carers, and we are looking for people to look after children of all ages, from babies to 18-year-olds. There's a particular need for teenagers, also unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, and brother and sister groups. So we don't want to, we want to keep brother and sister groups together if they come into care, and then also babies and parent and child placements. There is no one typical foster carer. Foster carers come from all different walks of life. And to become a foster carer, you have to have some childcare experience. You don't necessarily have to have had your own children, but you need to show that you have some experience. You need to be patient, understanding, resilient. You need to be a good listener. A child needs to be able to trust you, and that you will become that child's advocate. You need to have compassion for them. You need to have a spare bedroom. In terms of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or disabilities, we're inclusive of everything. And you can be unemployed, or you can be on benefits and you can still foster. You can rent, you can own your own home, you can work, you know, so that there's been a few people think if they're single, they can't foster, but you just have to be able to think about how your life will work with a foster child. So that I can go into it in more detail if I speak to you separately, but you have to be over 21, you have to have leave to remain in the UK. And yeah, I think the most important thing is compassion for the children, and kind of walk with them as you go through their journey. In terms of the reasons why children come into care, there's so many different reasons. They might be experiencing domestic violence, abuse and neglect at home. There might be alcohol or drug misuse issues. There might be mental health problems. There might be toxic trio, which is where you have alcohol, drug and mental health issues feeding into each other. A parent might not have been coping. They might have gone to prison. They might have died. So all of those children and young people are going to have suffered some trauma and loss, but you never foster alone, and you get a lot of training. So you will have your own social worker. The child will have their own social worker. There's somebody on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and I can go into it in more detail. But it's a quite intensive process to become a foster carer, because obviously we need to make sure that we're placing those children in a safe and secure environment, and it takes between 3 and 6 months. You get paid to be a foster carer. It depends on the age of the child and your level of experience, the amount that you get paid, but it ranges from £312 to £514 per week per child. We also give you a startup grant of £500. You get money towards the children's birthdays and their Christmas or religious festivals, and then also money to take them on holiday. As I mentioned, yeah, training and support. So once you're fostering, you would have your own social worker. The child has their own. No matter how long you've been fostering, you'll always be learning. So there's always training and developmental programs to go on. In your first year, I think it's 6, and then it goes up to 12. We've introduced something called the Mockingbird Project, which came over from the US, and it's basically, it takes the idea that it takes a village to raise a child. So it's an extended family network. That's the kind of basis of it for foster carers and children in a kind of constellation family, which I can go into more detail. There's also a buddying program. So when somebody is approved as a foster carer, if they, for example, were looking after younger children, we'd match them with an experienced foster carer in that age group, and they would meet with them for once a month throughout their first year. That is a very, very kind of top overview way of kind of going through everything about fostering. Because what I was wanting to do was kind of get my face out there and kind of say, look, this we want to basically kind of get out there and speak to different organisations to see if anybody knows anyone who they think might become a good foster carer, because as I said, there is a real shortage of foster carers. So yeah, I'm kind of, my job never stops and we're always recruiting. And for the first part of the pandemic, we saw a really big increase of people inquiring, but there's the national trend at the moment that it's declining. So yeah, but obviously, unfortunately, the number of children who are coming into care is increasing. So I just need to recruit more carers, basically. So yeah, that's everything from me. I don't know if anyone has any questions at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for Rosie?
Yes.
For Jody, sir. Rosie.
Yeah, you have 3 hands up, Marcy. You have Agatha and
I can't see them.
yeah, I
Okay,
understand.
it's Agatha and then Logie and then Joan.
Agatha,
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Rosie, for laying out what the foster parent carers or foster parents, what I call them, that you're looking for them, what they do. I think we've got great foster parents, carers in Merton. I was on the foster parent and adoption board many years, and I still work with the foster carers. But I do have something. I think that if we want foster carers, we need to be able to support them more.
Mm-hmm.
I know they support them, but sometimes there's issues with the foster parent, maybe with the children, and I feel the foster parents feel they don't get enough support. So if you want to get more people, you know how word of mouth, goes around. You need to make sure that you're looking after the foster parents, no matter what the issue is. You have to make sure that if there's an issue and you're dealing with it, you have to go back and make sure that the foster parents are okay. Because if you don't leave them, you leave a bitter taste in their mouth, and then you're not going to get more people because word goes round.
No,
so you have to, it's all right advertising for more people, but you have to look in the background what's going on.
No, absolutely, I agree. I do agree. I think that's part of the Mockingbird project that we introduced. I think it was last June, because I think that's helping to kind of make them feel more supported. And I deal directly with the level 4 carers, and I think they do feel well supported, but obviously it's always good to people do leave, and it's important to find out why. So we make sure that they don't go to other boroughs or resign or whatever it might be. So no, it is definitely very important. It's something that we need to kind of keep on building upon. So thank you for that.
Who is the next person?
Logie, is it Logie?
Logie?
Yeah, I had a Zoom meeting with 111 service this morning. What I could ask is, so when you all match the child with the foster parent, and if the child is on the verge of committing suicide, taking too much of medication, do you have to be reported? Who reports you back to the social worker? Foster parents or the hospital?
That's a good question. I have to say, I'm the front side of it, so I don't get involved in that side, but I'm the recruitment and publicity officer. But I would imagine, so if it comes from the hospital to the social worker, it should go to the social worker.
The reason is the child went to these foster parents on the 6th of January, and this happened on the 7th of January. She had been self-harming herself, and then she had the foster parents called in the 111 service. And then I was listening to the commentary the whole lot. But I was surprised that nothing further been done to safeguard the child.
I would have thought,
that's why I was just worried about how these people, foster parents, should have done something about it, because the narrative I heard in the call, 111 call, is so frightening that on the side was virtually committed suicide, really.
Oh. That sounds. I don't know the ins and outs of the protocol, but you would have thought that they would have gone back, and that would have been
I thought
reported, because there is, as foster carers, they have to fill out daily logs. So in terms of if there's been an incident, say for example, if you're looking after a toddler and they fell over, you would have to record the fact that they'd fallen over. So but in terms of anything, and I would have thought that would have gone back, but I don't know the ins and outs, and I don't kind of get.
No, she sorry. I don't mention them first. She had 8 paracetamol. She had 8 ibuprofen, and she had a lot of medication. It was terrible. I mean, I just couldn't understand why nothing done about it.
No. You would have thought that they absolutely should have been. I don't know the ins and the outs of that one, and so my job is just literally to kind of raise awareness for the need of foster carers. But have they been in touch with the social worker, or have you been in touch with the?
Well, I mean, as I said, I mean, this is. I hope that the whole subject would have cleared, but I don't know, because it was referred to as nurse, and they were taken her back to St. George Hospital for that. And I don't know full story what happened after that. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
No. Sounds very traumatic, though.
I think the social worker would be involved. I mean, they wouldn't, because otherwise they can't go back to the foster parents. So I think they would have to be involved in it.
Yeah, okay, I'll find out. Thank you.
No worries. Sorry not to be any more help.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, hi, thank you. I think some of the reason why at the moment we are lacking having foster carers. Some foster carers, they feel like they're not being supported. As you know, I know Agatha said the same thing, and they're not being listened to. Because sometimes what we must realize that when those children are within the foster carer's house, they're in a family, and they're the first port of call where the children are concerned. And sometimes when they do, I mean, I've experienced, not with only myself, but with other people, when they do report issues to social workers, sometimes they don't really listen to and understand where the foster care is coming from. And of course, some foster carers really get depressed. They don't want to do it anymore. I know foster care will be in foster care for many years. And, issues and concern happens, and you're led to believe that they are not worthwhile after working over 20 years within a service. And, these are things that we need to look into and how we can address issues differently. And also, when assessing young people to put in foster care, and especially when you have a single person or a single, woman caring, you have to really look into the child who you're putting in that care. Is that child, a child, as we say, what is the situation? Because many times foster carers end up having a child who is 16 and end up realize that the child is 25. And that sometimes have a big problem. So we need to look into the assessment, in different ways.
No, I agree. I don't have much to do with the matching side of things, but yeah, absolutely. That I will raise it. I will mention that, because we do need to make sure that our foster carers are feeling well supported. Because as we said earlier, if they're not going to hang around, and it is a very demanding and incredibly rewarding role, and they should feel absolutely supported.
You have another hand up, Marcy.
Who is that?
There's a gentleman. What's his name?
Yes, it's me, Ben. Hi there.
Sorry, Ben.
Just Rosie.
Sorry to interject. Siva, sorry.
Who's sharing?
Oh, Shiva, share the screen.
Yeah, Shiva, you're sharing your screen. Could you stop the screen share, please?
I think he's muted.
Oh, it's all right now.
Yeah. No, I just said.
Let's get Ben.
Sorry, I just had a quick question, Rosie, just to understand the process. Who carries out the assessment, and who is responsible to decide whether the child or young person will go in residential care or foster care? Or does the young person have a say in whether they want to be in a residential setting or in a foster setting? I don't understand the process of that.
Generally speaking, the way that we think that children are better in foster homes these days. I mean, 20 or 30 years ago, it's probably more of a kind of leaning towards residential. So what we ideally we would prefer is for a child to go through to a foster family. And if for whatever reason, I was on a call earlier with a foster carer, and she had a little girl with her for 3 years, and it hadn't worked. She's a really experienced foster carer, but that child she either needed a family which was with her 24/7, and she needed a lot of therapy. So the child ended up going to a residential home, and actually that was the right place for her, because she she could go to school there, she'd have a lot of therapy, and she'd have one-on-one care. So it kind of depends on the child and how, because there's no, you don't know. So might have one child go to a foster care placement and it might not work. They might move on and go to a different family, and it might be brilliant. So you don't know. Our first step is always to go to foster care families, because we think that families are the best places. But obviously sometimes that's not always the case. So it depends on the child and the individual, but also it's there's a placements team. So I'm the fostering recruitment team. So my job is to kind of recruit foster carers. Once you've gone through the whole process of becoming a foster carer, which is a very intensive process, obviously it has to be, because we need to make sure that the children are going to be placed in a safe, secure environment. But once you're approved, you then go to the fostering team. And then when a child comes into care, they'll go to the fostering team and they'll look at the available social foster carers that are available and see whether or not they think they've got a suitable match. And if they think that that's a suitable match, they'll contact the foster carers and they'll have the referral form on the child. And then the foster carers will look at the referral and they'll think, okay, I don't think this is going to work, or yes, I think it will. And if we can't find a suitable foster carer, then we have to go and look at IFAs, so independent fostering agencies. And I used to sit next to the placements team, and it was for residential care. It's quite rare, basically, these days. It's only if kind of every other option has kind of been exhausted, and it doesn't feel right for that child. So it's kind of then it's the last resort. But it can really work for children, some of them, but it's not what we would prefer. We prefer to find the right family for them. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other
Grace,
questions?
you have Grace?
Yeah, hi,
Yeah.
Hi, Grace.
hi. This
Grace.
might be, hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Wonderful. Might be a difficult question, but I was wondering how many children on average do you have that you're looking for foster care for? And my second part is what percentage of them are from the ethnic minority or from a Black background?
Okay, the first question, we roughly have about 150 children in care, and we've got about 70 foster carers. The second question, I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find out for you. We have a sufficiency strategy, so I can find that out, and I can contact it with you for those details if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and I assume that's children between newborns right up to what, 16?
To 18. Yeah, so anything from 0 to 18. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, sorry, I don't know the answer to the first one, but I can find it out, and I can get your contact details from Everett and email it to you. Yeah.
I think Rose, if you send it to me, I'll share it with all of the JCC. I think that's a question everyone would like.
Yeah, definitely. And then should I send you my presentation? And I've got a welcome pack as well. So basically, maybe I'll send you some information tomorrow, Everett, and you can have a look over it.
Yes, please, and then I'll forward that on. Yes, please.
Yeah, perfect.
And obviously your contact details as well, so people can contact you directly.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thank you. And I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. Oh, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick one from me. I thought it would go up until 16, but you just said to 18. Does that mean 16 to, does that mean post 16 is treated differently from 16 and under? Is there a special?
No, it's 0 to 18. So it's 0 to 18. And there is something called staying put now, which has been introduced for the last couple of years. So not many 18-year-old children leave home at 18. So now if you're in a foster care placement, and if your foster carer wants and you want to, you can stay put. So if you're in education, you don't have to, you can stay with them up until some cases 25 and some cases up 21 to 23. So it just means that you don't, you're still part of that family. So there was a cutoff before when you were 18, and then you kind of were deemed as off you go, but it depends on the circumstances. But I do know quite a few foster carers that have staying put. But yeah, it's anything from babies to up to 18. And my job never stops, as I said, so I'm always looking for people for foster carers. But we do have a big need, especially for people to look after teenagers, and then unaccompanied asylum seeking children, and brother and sister groups. But it does change. So sometimes we need more parent and baby carers. Sometimes we need more baby carers. So you never know, basically. So my job is just to recruit people to look after children of all ages. So yeah.
One more question. With what's happening geographically with Ukraine and the encouragement for families to, for UK to take on, to offer their homes, are you envisaging taking on more children from Europe, from Ukraine? And will that put, again, an immense pressure on the borough?
I don't. I think that it's. I think it's a very difficult question to ask, and I don't know whether I'm right or wrong in thinking this, but I think that it maybe will be more families. But it's such a difficult question to know. I mean, I think that when the government website went live, it crashed pretty much automatically because of the demand. So yeah, I suppose I can't really answer that question. But again, as I said, I'm just always continually looking for more foster families. And sometimes, yeah, the kind of, as I mentioned earlier, the groups kind of changes in terms of which groups you need more priority carers for. But yeah, no, can't answer the question. But hopefully, if I just keep recruiting more carers, we'll be able to help in some way.
Okay, is there any other question? Okay, thanks, Rosie. Thanks for your presentation.
No worries, thank you,
and
everybody.
Look out in your emails for some details of fostering from Everett.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a nice evening.
Thank you too.
We'll now move to item 5, suicide prevention, and that's by Jodie Ferris.
Everybody, thank you so much for having me. So my name's Jodie. I'm a suicide prevention coordinator from Mind in Brent, Wandsworth and Westminster. And I'm here with my colleague, Helen. I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself quickly, Helen.
Hello, good evening. I'm Helen and I'm the team leader for the North and Southwest Suicide Prevention and Postvention Services, which covers 14 boroughs.
Yeah, and Merton is one of those. I'm just going to quickly share my screen, so let me know when you can all see that. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So the project that we're doing is commissioned by South West London CCG, and it's across 6 boroughs in South West of London, and Merton is one of them. And as part of the project, there's a lot of different things going on, but one of them is my role, which is as a coordinator to reach the wider community and talk to them about suicide prevention. So that's what I'm going to be doing here today. We do have a longer session, about an hour, but today I'm just going to do 20 minutes so you can get an idea and a feel for the kind of awareness that I'm raising. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions as well. Obviously we are talking about suicide today, so if anybody needs to take a break or step out or kind of come out of the meeting and join back afterwards, it'll be 20 minutes long. So yeah, please do take care of your own well-being and step out if you need. And I'll provide our contact details afterwards as well for me and Helen, so you can contact us if you've been affected by anything we've talked about today. There'll also be signposting options at the end, so you can make use of those if you do feel like you need them. But yeah, my main message is this can be a difficult topic, so please do take care of yourself, and yeah, leave at any point. That's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about kind of understanding suicide, and it is something that does happen within the borough of Merton. And it does affect our communities. And I looked into the link between suicide and ethnic minorities, just kind of for this group. And there's mixed research. Some research suggests that they're at greater risk, and some research suggests that ethnic minorities might be at lower risk. So it's quite early on, but I think it's really important for everyone here, I guess, to be looking out for those in our community who may be at risk. So it is the act of intentionally taking your own life, and it can be all the way from kind of just thoughts about ending your life all the way to actually planning methods, thinking about it and making those clear plans and taking action. And it's actually 1 in 20 people that will experience thoughts of suicide, and that comes from a recent NHS digital survey. So it really shows that a lot of people will be kind of feeling this way, and that's just within the last year, and in our lifetimes it's more 1 in 5, so it's a high number of people. And it can be seen as this kind of combination between too much pain and too few coping strategies. And of course, it is really devastating for everybody who is left behind. And we believe that it can be preventable, and research suggests it's a really preventable death. So we're all kind of doing our bit. We're hoping that we can save lives within our communities. I want to briefly touch on how suicide may be related to trauma, because I think this is an important point, which is that suicide isn't a problem in itself. It's often this attempt to solve a problem, and it's the distress, the emotional pain that can cause a real kind of problem for someone, and suicide can be that attempt to release it. And this distress can be caused by many different underlying factors, such as adverse childhood experiences. So anybody who's growing up with difficult life circumstances may be at greater risk. So this is things like neglect, abuse. We just talked about foster carers, so children in care. Anybody growing up who's been a victim of prejudice or discrimination, poverty, anything like that can be a trauma that can lead to increased suicidal thoughts when someone is an adult. In terms of risk factors, there is many different ones that there can be, and they can fall into these 4 categories here. So it could be demographic factors or social factors, stressful life experiences, and also interpersonal and intrapersonal factors. But the most important thing is that anybody can be at risk of suicide. So it's really important that we are kind of looking out for those, and not assuming that certain people might be more at risk when actually it can be any of us. But some of the research suggests that these are some of the highest risk groups. So anybody who's experiencing socioeconomic disadvantage, middle-aged men we know are a high risk group, alcohol and substance misuse, those who self-harm and have made a previous suicide attempt, mental illness, bereavement of someone who has died by suicide, domestic violence, and also being part of the LGBTQI+ community, or any other discriminated against group. So this list is by no means exhaustive. There's many different risk factors, but these are just some things to bear in mind if you are supporting someone who may be feeling this way. In terms of what you can do, there's so many things that we can all do to look out for people and make sure that we are supporting those in our community. And the most important thing is just being able to kind of recognise these signs and then ask someone if they're feeling suicidal, so that we can get them the right support. These are some of the signs that you might see in somebody who is suicidal. So the main takeaway is any changes. So changes in behaviour, changes in mood, changes in appearance, changes in how they talk. So I think saying they can't go on, or people might be better off, anything like that. And that can be a sign. Obviously there's lots here, and there's more as well. But I think the most important thing is that you are recognising any changes, and you'll know the people that you work with and that you support the best. So hopefully you'll be able to notice these changes. But you always want to ask if you do have this gut feeling. So it's really important that you kind of ask the question if you are worried. We know that that doesn't increase risk. It's been kind of well documented in research that it can reduce someone's risk by opening up that conversation. So you might want to start by telling them what you've noticed, your reasons that you're concerned, and then just kind of coming out with the question and saying, are you having these suicidal thoughts, and allowing them to talk about it with you. You really want to listen at that point and make them feel heard and understood. So you can do this by reassuring them, using active listening skills, not trivializing what they're saying, and not giving them solutions at this point, but really listening and making sure they feel heard. We also want to avoid any judgmental language. So anything like, don't do something silly, and also the word committed as well. So committed suicide was something we want to move away from, and instead we might want to use died by suicide or took their own life, just to try and destigmatize suicide and make sure that we are able to talk about it without shame, and that means that more people can be open about the feelings they're having, and we can get them to the right support. Obviously, once somebody has kind of told you that they might be feeling this way, and you've kind of collected that information, you might want to create a safety plan with them. So obviously, if you're doing this professionally, you want to follow your organisation's safeguarding protocols, make sure you're aware of who is the designated safeguarding lead, and you might want to involve somebody else that may be part of the procedure, as well as signposting. But the safety plan is just about being collaborative with the other person and talking to them about how they might be feeling and what they might need to stay safe. So this could be as simple as a soothing or distracting activity, or it could be getting rid of access to means. It could be getting to a safe place, informing other people, getting that support network. And then on the right, there is the CPR acronym, which you might just want to bear in mind when you are collecting information about how they're feeling or conducting a risk assessment. So starting with their current plan and their intentions, their thoughts, what they've kind of started to do if they have, what their prior behaviour is like, so if they felt like this before, and if they've kind of taken anything or they've made kind of any prior steps. And then thinking about their resources as well. So do they have access to means, but also do they have resources to keep them safe? So do they have a support network? Can they get to a safe place? Of course, if they are ready to disclose, if they are ready to act and they've disclosed the plan and they intend to carry it out, this will be an imminent risk. And if there's an imminent risk, then it's really important that you stay with them until an ambulance arrives and make sure that they can get to A&E safely, so they can be supported from there. It's also important really to look after yourself whenever you're dealing with a disclosure of suicide, or when you're supporting anybody who may be at risk. And just this is a small reminder just to put on your own oxygen mask first. Kind of refocus on yourself after an intervention, and make sure that you are really taking care of your own well-being. And some ways to do that is to have these clear boundaries. So not keeping any disclosures of suicide a secret. You can discuss the limits of confidentiality. So let them know that you will be passing on this information. You want to report your concern in the appropriate way, following your safeguarding procedure within your organisation, and always ask if you're unsure. So make sure you're checking that you are kind of, you do know the procedures, you are doing that right thing, so that you don't have to hold that worry or that anxiety, because we know this can be an anxiety provoking thing to be doing, supporting someone, and we do have these worries about, are we doing the right thing, are we saying the right thing? And then you want to seek support after you've dealt with a disclosure. So whether that's within your organisation or whether that's personally, how you unwind and practice self-care. The next couple of slides are some signposting options. These can be for you, they could be for anyone that you know, or anyone that you are supporting who may be at risk. And they all are within the southwest of London. So firstly, we have the recovery cafes. There is 3 here, but if you follow the links, you can find out more about their opening times and referral forms. We also have men's sheds, and we're hoping for there to be one in every single borough. So a men's shed is coming to Merton, but these are the ones that are a little bit more established. Again, you can just follow the links. You do have access to these slides in the agenda, so please do follow the links and you can find out a bit more. In terms of local suicide prevention support, we have the mental health crisis line, which you can always provide someone or call yourself, as well as the CEDAR's Saving Life programme, the Listening Place, and also Maytree. They all offer different types of support for people who may be suicidal. So again, if you follow these links, you can find out more and you can find a referral form to get people to the right support. And then we also have our local suicide bereavement support. So this is delivered by us in Mind in Brent, Wandsworth and Westminster. And it is for anybody who has been bereaved by suicide. It's Caroline and Harry Maladress is there, who is the suicide bereavement liaison in the southwest of London. She gets most of her referrals via the hub, which is from the police. But if you do email Caroline, she can send you a referral form if you do know of someone who has been bereaved by suicide and would benefit from her one-to-one support. In terms of national mental health support, it's always important to check that people know that these exist. So you can go to your GP for mental health support. There's also Rethink Mental Illness, the National IAP service, where people can refer for talking therapies for their mental health, and also local minds like ours, and you can kind of check and see which services exist within the area, and yeah, can help people access the right support. And then finally, we have some helplines. So this is just for you to provide to others as part of their safety plan. Check they feel comfortable using these type of sources of support, but it can just be a helpful resource as they're open 24/7. So Shout is a tech service and Samaritan is a call service. And then there's also Calm for men and Papyrus for young people. In terms of helpful resources for supporting someone, I've put together a few. The first one is the most important one. So this is the Stay Alive app. If you have a smartphone, I'd really recommend downloading it because there's lots of free suicide prevention information on there. And then here's a few others that could be beneficial. So Papyrus safety plans for creating a safety plan with a person. And it just provides some ideas if you have never created a safety plan before. And if you want to learn a little bit more, I really recommend the Zero Suicide Alliance training. It's 20 minutes long. You don't have to sign up or anything. You can just follow the link and complete the training kind of whenever suits you. And it is, a little bit more in depth about how to support someone, and it's definitely a helpful training. You can also become a suicide prevention champion. So if this is something you feel passionately about and you would like to get involved with kind of furthering this conversation beyond today, we'd love to have you on board. We have a group of suicide prevention champions that exist across the southwest of London, and it's quite a low commitment role. It's quite flexible. It's just about personally and professionally championing suicide prevention. So you'll be aware of the signs, you'll be able to start these conversations, you'll be aware of services, and you'll be kind of raising awareness in any way that you can, as well as kind of networking with the rest of our suicide prevention champions and learning from each other about how to raise awareness and also support people who may be at risk. These are our contact details if you'd like to get in contact regarding anything that I've mentioned in this presentation today, such as if you'd like a longer suicide prevention session for your team or your organisation or any other kind of forums that come up. If you're looking for support around children and young people, then there's Anna's email address and also Helen's email address, who's here today, in case you have any further questions about the work that we do. We really do encourage you to get in touch if you do have any questions. But for now, if anyone has any questions, we'll still be here for a few moments. So please do kind of raise your hand. And I can see already there's one hand that's been raised for a while. So yeah, feel free to kind of unmute yourself and ask any questions.
Okay, can we have that hand that is up because I can't see it?
It's Logie first, and then if we could have Councillor Henry and then Councillor Macaulay.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, these suicide prevention courses, do you all have it in schools?
Yes.
Right. The next one is, do you all know about camps? Camp services for children. But what I can understand, why camp service don't operate self-referral, and why don't they have 24/7 call?
Yeah.
Because the reason is, I just said the previous issue. I had a Zoom meeting with 111 services, and a lot of parents were trying to get hold of camps, and they just didn't get any help from them.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is really right, and we're delivering this awareness session in schools, but schools often don't have the capacity to take on any training, unfortunately, so it's quite difficult to get that support there. We're also offering Papyrus training to schools, which is 3.5 hours, but again, often they don't have the capacity, but lots of people are attending it. It is being taken up, so that is good news that schools are becoming more aware of suicide. When it comes to CAMS, unfortunately, that's not something that's within my remit, but I do understand what you're saying, that it's really difficult to access often. It's not as well kind of funded or as well resourced as it should be to support our young people who are dying by suicide. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and we'll always kind of take back your comments to our commissioner, because yeah, we do agree that actually it's difficult to get that support for young people who need it, especially through CAMS, which is often one of the only routes through the NHS. So unfortunately cannot kind of speak on improve that, but I do agree with you.
Today's session was about all the 5 hours. I had 5 different cases, and all the children, young people. And out of the 5 cases, three of them said this is just could get access camps.
Yeah.
And that's very worrying about the children. I mean, I don't see how anybody can support the children. I mean, really worrying about it. Yeah.
I think a lot of it. I think a lot of it is down to funding, you know, which inevitably all these things are. And secondly, waiting lists for CAMS is that unfortunately they're just very long, and I think they struggle to cope with the sheer number that are referred to them, and to prioritize children who are in real need. I'm not saying that none of them are in real need, but it's just very difficult to prioritize. But that really is a school issue. Schools not only will have CAMS, but some schools may actually have a school counsellor. So, and a good pastoral team. That's a kind of gap filler, but it just varies from school to school and time restraints.
Thank you. I mean, this is the sad part of it. If somebody wants help urgently, they can't get it. You know, it's you're risking the child's future. I mean, I don't know whether he'll commit suicide tomorrow or not. We don't know. So, I mean, this is what worries me about the camp service, really. Thank you, anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So it was Councillor Henry, then we have Councillor Macaulay, and then Councillor Kajina as well.
Right. Thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation. And I have a few things I want to ask. First of all, can we have the copy of your presentation sent out to us if possible? The next thing is, I think it's a total disgrace to say there's no funding, right? I mean, matter of fact, as we may realize, within our borough, the suicide rate is so high where our young people is concerned. And I have experience where we have a young person going through difficult times, school not listen. That young person took himself to the camps and they turn him back, that he have to be referred by, you know, GP or something like that. And these are the things we need to look into and see what is priority, right? Our young people are suffering, and when they reach out for help and they get turned away, what do we expect? Right? Funding. I mean, we have so much money thrown in different pots, and where it's supposed to go, we are talking about no funding. I think we need to get a grip and realize what is important to our future children. That's how I feel, and I'm really annoyed when I listen about funding for the things which are supposed to be very important.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're so right, and it is extremely frustrating. I know within South West London CCG there is a big push at the moment for more support for children and young people. It is a priority area, so yeah, we'll continue to push it, and hopefully I'll be able to come with an update on what's being done in the area of children and young people. Because you're right, I think there's a lot of children who aren't accessing the support that they need, and you're right, they are kind of dying as a result. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and thank you for your comments.
Okay, Councillor Macaulay.
Right, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. Just a few points. In terms of safeguarding protocols and also organization that helps, I'm going to be referring you to cases of domestic violence, because during the pandemic, as we know, because of COVID-19, there has been a backlog of cases in court, which has caused a lot of DV cases to be prolonged. And in terms of the courts dealing with these cases, this has caused a lot of distress to families who are and defendants who are waiting for their cases to be heard in court. What I want to know is what help that these organizations give, and do they advertise what they do? Because one of the things we found, first of all, I do chair the court in the DV court in Wimbledon, and it's very difficult when these cases come to court. They make an application, the defendant will make an application for a screen to be put, because they don't want to see the perpetrator in face, because we have to be very careful that we grant an application for screens to be put up. So one of the things, which has happened in the last 2 years on DV cases. It has caused a lot of distress amongst defendants who are waiting for their cases to be heard. And I wonder whether these organizations are playing a pivotal role in terms of helping defendants before their cases are listed for hearing by the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service. Can I have some comments on that? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really important thing that you've raised. We do know that those who have experienced domestic violence are a higher risk group, and especially if they're going through the process which you've described, which can be extremely distressing. So yeah, we know that there's a lot of kind of charitable organisations that will support people who are a victim of domestic violence, and certainly we would like to work with those organisations to talk about suicide prevention as part of what they do. So that is definitely something that is within our remit and we would like to do. In terms of specific organisations that do help with that group, I can do some research and see kind of if there is those gaps and if that support does exist, because I believe that it should do, and that there likely is some support there, because it's a really important group, and we certainly would like to reach those who are a victim of domestic violence. I don't know, Helen, if you had anything to add on that one.
No, to be honest with you, I haven't, but it is certainly a group that is very vulnerable. The cases of domestic violence certainly have gone up, particularly during COVID, and I'm not using that as an excuse or anything, but it's been reported that it has, which is very sad and shouldn't happen in the first place. And I'm sure that those groups mostly, I would suggest, are women, but that doesn't mean to say that men aren't victims either, that we would like to reach out to from a suicide prevention point of view.
Okay, thank you. Agatha?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I think it is a shame about CAMS and the resources. It's constant resource issues. The government claims to put more money, but don't put any money in any resources. It's just the same old, and we need to do something about it. I mean, I know a young man who recently took his life about 4 weeks ago because COVID didn't help. He was locked up and all this. He couldn't see where his life was going. He was 27, was buried last week. I mean, it's difficult. How are we going to help our young people? How are we going to help them to realize there is life out there without them thinking that everything is hopeless? And, there's always claim of support, but the support is not enough. You can help as much as you can in your suicide prevention, but, at what stage can you help? We need to be able to try and prevent these things from the beginning, or while they're still around, encourage them to do things, have activities, have things for them to do, because the way things are going, I mean, I've heard so many suicides, and people as young as they, and it's heartbreaking, and there's going to be more, and I think we really have to make it a big issue as to get funding to be able to support them from the beginning, and see, and as you say, get champions in schools as well, so you can see, any signs of whatever is happening. And not to use it as a ticking box exercise, because we tend to use a lot of these things as ticking box, that they'll come here and talk about it, they go to schools and and this is people's lives we're talking about. So something needs to be done, and we need to keep an eye. We need to be able to support them when we need to support them. Resources need to be applied in the right places, and there should be a lot of resources. We should be fighting for resources. And it's not the council resources, government resources we should be, but that's where it's needed.
I mean, mental health is so vast, and it's blown out of all proportion. There is such a tremendous need. I mean, we all have mental health. There's no disputing that. It's where we are on this spectrum. And I just don't think we're even scratching the surface with regard to mental health and supporting people who are on the spectrum of having difficulties, being severely ill with mental health issues. Schools are in turmoil. you know, again, not using COVID as an excuse or a reason, but it is. They've been through absolute turmoil in the last 2 years. Hopefully they might be back on track of sorts. But again, you know, these children that they're attempting to teach have acquired huge mental health issues and problems, and that their only outlet is CAMS. But then, as you quite rightly say, government are not putting in funding to support CAMS and to have more counsellors, counsellors, or whatever they're referred to help these children, to get them back on an even keel. And it's sad that we're constantly talking about funding, but that is the issue. And it's not, if there is funding coming from government, where is it going, and is it going in the right place? And we would suggest in this meeting that it's not going in the right place.
Well, I don't think it's going the right place anyway, because I've been supporting a domestic violence person as well, who's, you know, suffering from mental health due to what's been going on, due to lack of housing, and due to it's a whole issue. But we have to be able to, you know, support the people, whether you can get them housing or get them, you have to be able to put them in, wrap them up in some kind of safety net. You know, without having to say you have to refer yourself, go there, and they get more confused and more stressed, because once they get to that place, the response they get is more distressing than not going at all. So, you know, we really have to try and do something. It's hard.
Okay, well, we'll have to move on because we have 3 other items that's pressing. So we move to item 6, Martin Vaccine and Engagement Update by Simon Wady. Wady.
Oh, Wady's fine, fantastic, thank you. It's only 4 letters, but it's amazing the pronunciations you get, so thank you. Right, I'm just going to share my screen. 1 second. Right, I'm hoping you can all see my screen. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody for the invite today. You know, particularly if you think about today's the 2nd anniversary of when the country first went into lockdown. And, you know, back then, obviously, there was no vaccine. That only came on just over a year ago now. So, you know, it's a very point in time, I guess. But I also like to stress that what I'm going to talk about here is it's not just the NHS. A joint venture with our colleagues in Public Health Merton as well. So I feel a little bit of a fraud coming here talking to you, because, you know, they've done an awful lot of work on this as well. So they're not here, but, you know, I'd like to express my thanks to them, as well as many of you who we've engaged with during this period. And also feel slightly fraud because also I've only just started working with CPD back in November, so a lot of this was already in train, should I say, when I was there. Like I say, you know, 2 years ago, there was no vaccine when we went into lockdown. We progressed a lot. You think about the first vaccine was in December of 2020. Maggie Keenan took that jab, and since then the NHS has delivered 118 million vaccines, which also includes 32 boosters. But I'm sure you're more interested in South West London. So if we look at that, sorry, I can't see my own screen now. I've got myself here. This is where we stand across South West London. These figures represent about 64.4% of people having the first jab, just under 61% for a second, and boosters standing at about 46.5. You know, percentage-wise, you know, it does change a little bit because of the cohorts coming on, and, you know, we'll be moving on in the spring to including 5 to 11-year-olds. So, you know, we feel like we're a little bit wrapped up in the percentages there, but don't worry too much about it. I mean, so if we look at Merton, for example, we're about 63.4% of the total population has actually had a first jab, 59.7 for the second, and 44.8 for the booster. So slightly under, should we say, the Southwest London average. But if we break it down into the wards, and I'm not going to go through every ward because, you know, there's 20 of them. I know that, so I don't really want to bore you too much with the wards here. But if we look at by wards, nine wards, 45% of the population in Merton have a vaccination rate of over 65%. These being Cannon Hill, Dundonald, Lower Merton, Merton Park, Rainsbury, Rains Park, and West Barnes. But then there are 5 wards that actually have a vaccination rate of below 60. These are also, as you can see here, the wards, unsurprisingly, I'll say, are below 6%, with the most unvaccinated patients per 10,000 of the population. Collieswood, Figs Marsh, Graveney, Hillside, Lambeth Fields, and Long Thornton, of which, you know, so these are areas of concern for the CCG and public health. Going further into this, if we look at the turnout into those areas, I suppose it'd be unsurprising that the areas with a higher deprivation level, the vaccine take-up is the lowest. This is in amongst those, when we then break down into our groups of people, the people who've come from a Black, African or Caribbean heritage, the turnout is lower than we would like. Also between people who've identified as Eastern European, Kurdish, Turkish, and other mixed white backgrounds also. The turnout is low. Also with people identified as a Black mixed background is also low, and people from the traveller community. In amongst this also, you then look at it a little bit further, people aged between 30 to 39 are below 60% as well for turnout across Merton as a whole. But again, you then go back to places like Fig Marsh. Sorry, let me just quickly go back to my notes on this. The turnout for young people is that the age group is wider. It starts at around about the 16 mark and goes all the way up to 49. And we're looking at roughly about 54% of the population. So what have we done about this? You know, we are looking, coming up to, with the spring booster program, we're looking, sorry, just to go back, sorry, on the turnouts as well, sorry. And also we are very aware that these communities have also been the hardest hit by the impact of COVID, and also are most likely to encounter other health inequalities. So, like I say, going back to what we've done about it, into spring, we'll be going into about phase 3 of our engagement. Phase 1 was, you know, we started talking to people, let them know what's happening, but also there we was getting a little bit of feedback from the groups. And please don't think that feedback process has stopped. Obviously it continues, but from that also helped help us develop where we were going with the with things like the webinars, for example, so we could then tailor them for what people needed. So we met with community and faith groups, and, you know, we have probably totaled around about the 60 mark since February last year. Just to go quickly through some of the groups we've been talking to, you know, we've done some engagement with the Tamil community, including a Tamil speaking event. We've worked with the Afro-Caribbean community, the Polish Family Association. I know Slavik's not here today. He's at an event at Westminster Abbey to thank him for his input into the programme. We've also spoke to the Pearly, Majid and Al Kadhil Institute, also spoke to the Ghanaian community, working in partnership with the Ghanaian Union and the Ghanaian Nurses Association. There's been some work and outreach work with the homes community, which needs to continue. Working with Ready Homes, we've done some outreach with asylum seekers, and though we mentioned in pop-ups, we just this last Friday, Mohammed, who's been leading a lot of the actual pop-ups, was at a hotel in Merton, delivering further vaccines there. Only 4 people came forward for their first dose, but quite a few of the residents had already been vaccinated. We've attended traveller community sites, on-site visits, and also the Ahmadiyya Muslim community as well. We've done some work with them. So, you know, we've been out there talking to as many people as we can who are willing to talk to us and engage with us. Like I say, a lot of the findings from that have been turned into webinars, which people can go online and view. Some of them have been tailored to quite small groups. For example, just last Monday and Tuesday, the public health team delivered a webinar on maternal health, aimed for ladies from the BME background. So again, those are ongoing, and we are looking at doing more, because we've been very limited in the reach, the actual face-to-face engagement we can do. Again, through a lot of our outreach, we have provided culturally sensitive social media content, websites and tweets. And now, for example, we will be looking at what we can do, working with the Muslim community going forward into such things as Ramadan. The Community Champions is a scheme that, again, I mentioned our public health colleagues. This led from the COVID champions and now into the Community Champions, and they're there to support the communities to live safely and fairly with COVID-19, again, by discussing health matters that are important to members of their community, including vaccination and the impact of long COVID, because, you know, the fallout from COVID is ongoing. And also access to healthcare. There is I think it's a bi-monthly meeting they hold with their champions to give them up-to-date information, training, and things like that. So if you are interested in becoming a community champion, please visit the Merton website for that, and they will be very keen to have you, I'm sure. The pop-up clinics I mentioned, now these are very important because these were introduced to bring the vaccine to communities where uptake is the lowest, actually into the community. But also it gave people the opportunity to come along and just ask a question if they so wished, just to, any safety concerns or any query about the vaccine they had, an opportunity to talk to a health professional and to clarify their points. There are still some ongoing at the New Horizons Community Centre. The ones at the New Power Church in Mitcham, I think, have just come to an end, but they will continue at the New Horizons Community Centre. And around that, work, particularly at Christmas, because of the Omicron variant, where we did a little bit of a street ambassador work where we got some people on the streets. This was across the whole of southwest London, but Merton was included in that. And like I say, bear in mind, there was a wave of Omicron. They still managed to speak to over 3,000 people in Merton, just to point them to the directions of the vaccine centres, but also to engage if they were going to get their booster or not. It was, I suppose, the figures we look at in the uptake at the beginning of this presentation was probably reflected in the conversations they had. But as it was Christmas time, there was a lot of people who were putting off their booster because they were very concerned about being ill over the Christmas period, not quite enjoying the festive period as much as they would probably want to as well. So that's pop-up tickets, and yes, and also Public Health continue to work with BME Voice member organisations and the Polish Family Association to discuss wider topics around COVID, that being, testing, how to get access to self-isolation support, but also leading a healthier lifestyle. And these conversations continue as well. Excuse me. So next steps. Like I say, we are continuing our work. It doesn't stop. We are fully aware that, turnout is low in some areas and we need to refresh our approach to this, but also we've got coming up is through vaccinations to 5 to 11-year-olds. So we've got another cohort coming. We're going to be talking to. There is a spring booster program. Now this has started this week already. And this is for people who are aged 75 or over, those in care homes or people who are immunosuppressed, for them to come forward 6 months after their initial booster to book forward. To get them, because the Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunisation recommend that, the resilience to COVID through the vaccine is deteriorating after those 6 months. And if you think that, back in December when we started the booster program, It's been estimated that that program has helped prevent about 157,000 hospital admissions since mid-December, and that's from data, or an estimation from data from the UK Health Security Agency. But even despite this figure, the NHS in the same period has also treated more than 100,000 patients with COVID in the same time. The booster program in Southwest London, I can't give you a figure for Merton specifically, I'm afraid, but we're looking around about 190,000 people will be included in that. But I say that we need to refresh our engagement with people who remain unvaccinated. Now, I'd really like to hear your opinions and your thoughts about what succeeded. You know, what has the CCG and public health done well in reaching out and talking to people? What we could do better. You know, it's a case of we may have done it already. Let's not just throw it out, but let's do it again. You know, we know that there's a reason why people, we've got many reasons why people haven't come forward from some of those communities to be vaccinated. And, you know, a lot of them were concerns about side effects and long-term health conditions. I think that, you know, evidence is now backing us up to say that, you know, the concerns, though can be founded, aren't necessarily as severe as other people wanted to. A lot of people at the beginning didn't trust the vaccine. They weren't too sure it's safe because of how quick it seemed to come through. You know, gentlemen from a Black heritage were very concerned about fertility issues. So we've done, you know, what's said about these webinars we've done. So we've done some webinars around that. There's concern about people who were pregnant or due to, or actually currently breastfeeding, and the safety of the vaccine. So a lot of the reasons that people aren't coming forward haven't changed. You know, we need to work out still how we can reach those people. These aren't people necessarily who will respond, you know, to people with leaflets on the street. These are people who are not engaging with services completely. So, you know, work that Slavac's doing with the Polish Family Association is incredibly important because, you know, the way that, sorry, I need to find my readout. So people from Eastern European communities, the way they engage with the health service is totally different because of their background. In, say, like from Poland, where Slovak is, it's a different type of system. So not quite used to the NHS. So even registering with a GP is kind of alien to them. So we've got many bits of work we've got to do here. But we're also very aware that a lot of the people we're talking to have chaotic lives right now. If you know, I think we've all seen that fuel stress is very significant to people who are financially challenged in their lives. You know, and you know, is going out and getting themselves vaccinated top of their priority right now. You know, as ever, we don't know. We need to find out what we can do to get them to come forward as well. Because if you think about some of the feedback we had, was about 2% of people said location was important to them. It's very inconvenient to get to. We can put it into the community, but on that day it may not be appropriate to them because of their lives. We're very aware that some of the bigger vaccination centres are a bit of a bus journey away, and you know, if you're living on benefits, 155 for a bus journey there maybe got held up. You've got a 155 coming back. It's a big chunk of your budget out every day. So we are looking at everything we can to improve this, and any insights, any opportunities we've got to come and talk to some of your organisations or groups, I will gladly take up, and so my colleagues in public health. I mean, for example, we do offer Make Every Conversation Count training. To, you know, we're not here to judge, we're here to try and give people the information to make a choice, and then go and hopefully get vaccinated. So we've done some training with unpaid carers, for example, to have this kind of conversation as well. So, you know, there's many ways we can do it. Just let us know what you need, and we'll see what we can do to support you. So I think that's everything. So, some more information. Sorry, I haven't got slides in front of me. You go onto our websites, you will find lots of information there about COVID and vaccinations and where they can be. And, you know, my final thing I should have added this into the next steps, was that one of the things we are getting back a lot right now is that people feel COVID doesn't exist anymore. And one of the reasons I wanted to point out that, you know, there's 100,000 cases in hospital since mid-December across the country, like Southwest London, is that does exist. It is still out there. My son is 17 years old. Trying to get my 17-year-old son or any of his friends to admit they were going to go and get vaccinated is a tough ask. He's now currently got vaccinated. He's been vaccinated, but he's suddenly down with COVID. There's a little outbreak in amongst his social group. So, you know, it's still there. It's still affecting people. And, you know, we just can't rest on our laurels on this. So we do need to carry on. So thank you very much.
Do we have any questions?
There are questions from Councillor Henry, Grace and Logie.
Okay, Councillor Henry.
Sorry, my hand's not there. You have
Councillor Macaulay.
Yeah.
Councillor Macaulay.
Right. Thank you very much for your presentation, which is very helpful. I think public health have done a brilliant job in getting people to know about this vaccination, both the first, second dose, and obviously the booster as well. And I also feel that most of the churches, especially around Martin, and also our MP Siobhan McDonough has done a lot of publicity. And finally, the BME Voice have actually worked very hard in terms of getting people to get the boosters. One of the things which I saw in your presentations, I was very amused to see that the unvaccinated in the areas of Lavender Fields, Colliers Wood, Fitzmarsh, Graveney Hillside, and Longthornton. I was really amazed that Hillside is in the western side of the borough, is among those on the eastern side of the borough. Because it's amazing to say, last night we were canvassing in my ward, which I represent in Lavender Fields, and there's 2 doors which I knocked at, and it was very sad. They were both from ethnic background, and the husband lost his wife and his daughter. Both of them were not vaccinated, and I asked him the reason why, and he said to me, because of social media and the information they were reading, they felt that, you know, it was going to affect a lot of Black people. And I asked him, did you take the vaccination? And he said, no, he didn't take it because he did not believe that the vaccination was for him. And the other family I met, exactly the same thing. I asked him, are you aware of the BME Voice? They've never heard of the BME Voice. I said, have you been looking at the papers to see all the work Martin Public Health has been doing? They said, well, they've seen it, but they were looking at the negative side of people not being vaccinated. So I think, although there's been a lot of work done, I think there's, you know, in the words which I have just read out, which you had in your presentation, I do feel that we still have time to convince some of these people to have their first dose. And I don't think we should leave them, you know, like not worrying to say, okay, you know, let's not worry about them. We should try and let them get in touch with this organization like the BME Voice, because there's an issue of trust amongst some ethnic minority people. And I think once they speak to a group which is of ethnic background, they may be able to come to terms with getting the vaccination. I don't know what your views are on what I've just said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Macaulay. Yeah, no, just to clarify, on Hillside, it is just one section of Hillside, just over the border on this east-west divide that's very prevalent in Merton. The rest, as a whole, Hillside is about 61%. I totally agree about the work that the church's MP, Public Health and BME Voices have done in response to the vaccine programme. And I think the conversation you had with the gentleman last night correlates completely with a lot of the responses we are having. You know, people from, I mean, particularly, I was just looking at a survey response here, you know, that Black Caribbean respondents are more likely to talk to their family members and use Facebook as a source of information, along with, you know, also people from an Eastern European background as well look to Facebook. And this was also raised, I had a meeting with the Ethnic Minority Forum, Carers Forum, and everyone there on that call had had every vaccination they could get their hands on. But I think it's the best way to describe it. They'd had both boosters, so both jabs, were waiting for the boosters, had their flu jab. But even, and I think what you said about his family, they wanted the unvarnished truth, so they could then go back and communicate with their families that are across the world who don't have the type of level of information that are open or is available to us. It's unvarnished, totally scientifically proven and a trustworthy source of the NHS. So it's great that people still are engaging with us in that way, wanting to find out the information where they can then pass on. But I want to point out some things. Please don't feel that we are neglecting one. What we're going to do in the coming weeks is refresh our program and concentrate an awful lot more into those other areas, the Fig Marshes, the Longthorntons of Merton, those type of areas, because yes, we don't want to leave anyone behind on this, but it's who the message carrier will be. I'm fully aware that I may not be the best person to come forward with this message. We need to find the right people like yourselves, to deliver that for us, Councillor Macaulay, and we will carry on doing that. So whatever you need from us so you can have this information to go forward, please let us know, and we will continue to work with the Bear Me Voices to make sure that that's available. Again, it's interesting that what we saw at the beginning, some of the responses I saw from surveys before I started working here, into the initial surveys amongst people from an Asian heritage, for example, they wanted to see a bit more scientific data. And if you look at Merton as a whole in the space that year, people from the Asian heritage are succeeded what we expect a level, our baseline level there. So that's an ethnic group we're not necessarily concerned about on this one. We can carry on working because obviously there are some important cultural holidays and things like that we have to worry about, like I mentioned, Ramadan. I think we need to also be guided by yourselves. So please guide us where you can. That'd be a great help.
Who is next?
I think it's Grace next, then Logie, then Councillor Henry.
Grace.
Hi, thank you so much. Well, that was really informative, very, very interesting, very helpful. Very surprised to see that still 35% have not had their first jab, which is very different from the narrative on the mainstream media. However, I have to say, in terms of your approach, I personally feel that the government and the local authority and all the various agencies have worked very, very hard to get the message out there about the vaccination and have actually done a very, very good job. I don't think there's many people who do not know about the vaccination and why we are told to have the vaccination. So I think you flogged and pushed and pushed and pushed, and that's fantastic. I feel that pursuing that same narrative and that same train of thought, perhaps we could look and think perhaps that's not going to be productive, and it could actually be counterproductive. I think people need to look at, when you look at the first jab and the second jab and then the booster, why it is that percentages have fallen quite significantly. And I think people would feel more willing if they had the full picture. So why is it people are not necessarily coming forward, those who have had the vaccination? Why are they not coming back to continue taking the second and the third? I think we need to really start looking at the statistics more deeply. Furthermore, we've seen recently that the emergency, let's just say, we know COVID is there. For sure, we know it exists. And we all know people that have had it at least once, perhaps twice. In my daughter's case, she's a medical student, has had it 3 times. And so it is something that the government has actually decided that despite being vaccinated, we are now going to have to live with it. So not to say vaccinations will not continue, not to say that you do not continue to push the message, but I think how you push it, you need to be careful. I think it's letting people know that there is still a vaccination program out there, and let people have the choice. And I think if you give people the choice, you might find that perhaps they take a different approach. I know many people feel forced and pressurized, and that actually may put them off. And in terms of long term, remember, we're still under the study, which is due to complete in February, I think, 2023. Let us hear what the outcome is of these studies as well. I think people genuinely, if by now 35% are still unvaccinated, despite the narrative, despite what we've seen day in, day out throughout the media, they've experienced in their own families, friends, colleagues, etc., they haven't been vaccinated, then perhaps we need to be taking a different approach. And I'm not saying that flippantly. I'm just saying that flogging a dead donkey is not going to help. You're just going to, you know, make a situation perhaps more. I mean, I'm just speaking honestly. I mean, you know, it's not about psychology. I'm just telling you that I personally, it's not about the Black community or the white community. I think if 35% haven't taken it up until now, then we need to, you know, think about why and maybe take a different approach. Again, the agenda, was it the JDC had a mix, they turned their decision around of children who were teenagers. They initially said, you know, the margin was, it was marginal, and then they changed their mind. And despite the fact that we are no longer in an emergency, you've just said about pushing the vaccination to children from 5 upwards. I personally would want to understand the narrative and the rationale behind that cohort more deeply. I personally have a concern, even if nobody else around this table has one. And I think as a parent, as a mother, many people will have a concern. And if you think about 35% of adults not taking the vaccine, what do you think parents are going to do with their 5-year-olds? Will they be pushing that agenda? So, I mean, that is something that we really, you know, I don't say it flippantly. I mean, the narrative has changed. And as I said, you know, we've gone back to normal. We're not even wearing face masks on the underground anymore. So it is really having to live with it. And I think while it is still under a test situation, we still do not understand the full outcomes. Should we, as a borough, be pushing the narrative that 5 to 11-year-olds should be going down this route? I wonder. So that's just, sorry to be so negative on that, but I mean, I'm just being frank. You know, these are the real questions that people will ask.
No, thank you. And all good points. I can't comment on the 5 to 11s. I'm not a clinician. But what I could do is share with the group is some insight work we've done into that. I think that you've asked questions that amongst ourselves as engagement professionals, parents that haven't come forward themselves, how likely they are to get their children vaccinated, are people. So these are all questions we have asked ourselves too, and you know, the insight work throws some of that, will show some light into that, and I guess we'll see where we are on that, but I will feed that back. Thank you very much. Yes, sorry, I should have said this in the presentation, and I don't know why I didn't. Yes, vaccine, you know, when I was talking about people who have other concerns, you know, vaccine fatigue is a real thing out there. You know, we are fully aware of that. I mentioned fuel stress. You know, I spoke to a group of people on low incomes who, you know, some hadn't been vaccinated. And like I said, they were more concerned about how they were going to get through their daily lives and they weren't necessarily worrying about getting a vaccine. So I can appreciate outside pressures on anyone's life. But what we've got to do is try and make it easier for people to get there. But yes, you're right. The thing, so with the idea of vaccine fatigue in mind, one of the approaches we are considering, and we're certainly pursuing and piloting in some areas. I also look after Wandsworth as well as Merton. And that is to make sure that you will see that we mentioned community champions in the vaccination engagement stuff that Public Health have done. They used to be COVID champions and now community champions, because there is that step away that, yes, you know what, the NHS is here. It's always been here for people, even throughout the pandemic. You know, it still operates, and there is a system out there, and people have other concerns other than the vaccine. We can't keep on just talking about the vaccine. If you're already vaccinated, you know, you have other health concerns I'm sure you'd like to discuss with us. So we will be having conversations about other things with the vaccine. Could be then tagged on, you know, either at the end of that conversation or 3 or 4 conversations down the line. So that is an approach we are looking at doing. So I'm very pleased to hear that you feel that would be a good way to go on this one, Grace. So thank you very much for that. The links between the first, second, and booster. I mean, but you know, I don't know necessarily between the first and why people haven't come forward for the second after thing. But people with the booster, it's quite interesting to see. Some of it will be because of cohorts. I mean, during Christmas, for example, when we was looking at the booster works when it first started coming out, a lot of people didn't realise that they no longer had to wait. I think the 6 months went down to 3 months, and there was some data coming through from NHS England that demonstrated there was this time lag. Was demonstrating that but then when people noticed that they could then book after 3 months, they then started coming forward, and we saw a little bit of an uptake in that booster. But when you're thinking, and it's also because of when cohorts come available, so there is a little bit of a lag on that. But it is interesting to most of the people who haven't had the booster, we know have been vaccinated at least once. A lot of them just say, well, I've had it the once, I don't need it again. Particularly those people who have been second vaccinations, they say, oh, it's another booster, I don't really want another booster, or we'll wait to see. And now I think with the 4th booster, I think they're going to feel there may be some they feel correct in their assumption that it's now going to be a yearly thing. Perhaps it will be, I don't know, I'm not part of the JBCI, but there is that little thing. They feel 2 jabs is enough for them now, you know. That's why there's that bit of that. But on the other side, you know, I had a conversation the other day with someone who said, you know, I'm clinically vulnerable. I was up in the first tranche of people to be having a booster, but why am I on this 4th booster? You know, because of the age group, and it's only people over 12 who's got a very weakened immune system. So there's concern for people out there as well, which we also need to address, and the JBCI will do that, I'm sure. Who have the flip side of it, who do want another booster but don't feel they can get it. But we will continue with the conversation, because like I say, there is a woman I spoke to as a carer for her husband, and you mentioned people not having face masks on. This is a lady who is now staying at home at every opportunity she can, and will only go out if it's only really, really necessary, because she, through sheer fear, she worries that she's by a chance encounter with someone who is on the street without a mask, who is tested positive for COVID. She's going to carry it home to her husband, and she feels that could have a detrimental effect on his thing. So there is many problems existing that we need to also deal with, other than the vaccine, around COVID, and those type of issues are very key too.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, we can't take any more questions because we still have 2 other issues that will take time. If you have any question, can you provide an email so they can email you?
I will put in the chat now for you, yeah, but please bear in mind I can't answer any clinical questions because I'm not a clinician, so I can just talk about our engagement work. But I will,
okay.
If one, I can then pass it on. So
thank you very much.
No,
thank you very much for your presentation too. Now we'll move on to the police update by Chief Inspector Christopher Scamell.
That's correct. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for holding on for me. I'm just going to share my screen, if you bear with us 1 sec. Bear with us 1 second. I'll just get this from the start, sorry. Right, can everybody, is that being shared?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me along this evening to speak to you around policing in Merton. as part of the sort of Joint Consultative Committee with Ethnic Minorities. I'll just introduce myself quickly. My name's Chris Scammon. I'm the Chief Inspector for Safe, Enabled and Partnership in the Southwest BCU, and that covers Richmond, Wandsworth, Kingston, and of course Merton. I'm also responsible for the schools officers within the schools in Merton, and I'm also the lead responsible officer for outreach recruitment, which we're looking to increase the representation in the police officers from members of the community from the ethnic minorities, so increasing our representation. So what I've done for this evening is just put together a brief presentation, just a summary of the crime figures in and around Merton, and then looking at hate crime, some stop and search figures, and some trust and confidence. So this presentation is available by email if people wish to have it sent to you. I have passed it on to the meeting organizer. So I say if you want a bit more details and look at it a bit more in detail, then it can be shared. So in the last year within Merton, we've seen 13,000 total offences, which is down 1,587 on the year, which is almost an 11% reduction. And in those crimes that are of particular interest to the community, where people are at risk of threat and harm, burglary has seen a reduction from 956 offences down by 580 offences, which is a reduction of 37.8. Robbery has been reduced by 98 offences to 318, a reduction of 23.6, and weapons offences has gone down by 17 to 93 offences, a reduction of 15.5%. Where we have seen some increases in crime, particularly concerning is the increase in sexual offences, which has gone up by 69, which is an increase of 25%. And violence, we've seen an increase, a small 6.4% increase, which translates to 255 more offences.
Would you please start the slideshow, because we can't really see the data. If you can start a slideshow, so when we know what slide are you talking about, because I just see the overall.
Sorry, I'm going to come on to that.
Thank you.
I can't say, yeah. So sorry, is this the screen now with the total offences? Can someone just confirm that this is sharing?
No, you're still on the first slide.
Yeah, on the first one.
Chris, it's Everett. If you click onto slideshow, it will then...
Yes, I'm on slideshow. I'm looking at the side, so if that makes sense.
No, we're looking at your introduction.
Right, let me come out.
Yeah. It's on the slideshow now.
Right, okay.
But that information is in your papers.
Yeah, it is actually in the pack as well. Thank you.
Yeah. It will be easier to see it from the paper than on the screen.
Okay, Howard, is that sharing now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, our computers aren't, we've only recently started being allowed to use Zoom on the police computers, so it's not great on our computers. So this is just, I'll quickly flip through. This just shows all the offences across the neighbourhoods by the different wards and how many offences are in the wards. And I've broken it down into violence against the persons, residential burglary offences, robbery offences, weapons offences, which is quite good, very low across the board. Sexual offences, so you can see where we're experiencing more sexual offences. So what I've got now is I've moved on to look at the hate crime instance across the borough. And so if you look at the number of hate crimes, it's remained quite consistent around between the sort of like 20 to between 20 and 40 incidents Some have had multiple victims. And I say we've managed to solve in total 11.5% of all the racist hate crime in the year. Some months we've had real success. For example, October we solved 30% of all the crimes, but some months we've had little success. We do aim to have a 15% detection rate for racist crime across the Metropolitan Police, and within Merton we would look to replicate that. So at the moment we are a bit under 11.5%. We are working hard, and it does remain a priority within our policing plan to address racist crime within the borough and the entire Metropolitan Police. We've also looked at the number of homophobic hate crime across Merton. I say fortunately those figures are quite low in comparison to other places in London. We have seen some spikes. For example, in May last year we saw a spike where we had 11 incidents with 15 victims, which was an exceptional month. But I say across the other months we are looking at single figure incidents of hate crime, of homophobic hate crime, and we do have a 16.3% detection rate for homophobic hate crime across the borough. I've looked at Islamophobic hate crime. Again, this is very low, which I'm glad to say. Although it shows 0 detections, we are really low. Some months we've had, pleased to say, we've had 0 hate crimes. In other months, just 1 or 2 instances. So although one incident is one too many, quite low instances compared to other sort of like BCUs across London. So a really good success story there. So I've also looked at stop and search in Merton for the months ending March 2021 to the end of January 2022, which are the most recent figures I've got. If we look at those figures that show the total number of white, black, and Asians who have been searched, and what those age groups of those being searched are like, and how by gender as well. So 1,167 white people searched, 1,003 black people searched, and 483 Asian searched, and then others just covers of anybody else who is not fitted by those descriptions. And you see the majority of those searched, 367 in the 15 to 19 age group, followed by 20 to 24, and then 20 to 29. And the majority, 922 of the people searched are male, compared to 81 female. So I've looked at the ethnicity of appearance of the people, all the people searched, and that shows sort of again the total the numbers over the period of time, and within this graph it also shows the number of searches per 100,000 of population, per 1,000 of population. So, and this is where you can look at the disproportionality of stop and search. So I'll just do, for example, February 2021, there were 151 white people searched, which worked out at 1.2 per 1,000 population. There were 99 black people searched, which worked out at 4 person search per 1,000 population. So you can see that's about 3.5 times more likely to be searched, and that is replicated throughout the year, where you see if you go along the year that black people are 3 to 4 times more likely to be searched on average in Merton, and Asian people also between 1 and 2 times more likely to be searched than a white person in Merton as well. And I say so, and that highlights some of the disproportionality of stop and search in Merton, which is probably reflective of what is the situation in other boroughs in London as well. This is the trust and confidence for the police in Merton. These are done. This is measured by the public attitude survey. The questions that people are asked are across the top, and the numbers given are a percentage. And if you look at Merton, none of our red is where there is a real lack of confidence, and then it sort of graduates up through orange, yellow, light green, and green. So although we're not red like, if you imagine sort of like some of the other boroughs like Lewisham and Hackney, we're not green. So like I say, we're aware there's a lot of work to do locally, which we are really concentrating on, in how we build that trust and confidence across all the communities in the borough. Unfortunately, I don't get this figure broken down into trust and confidence from different communities. The sample size of the survey isn't enough to do that. This is just total across the trust and confidence in the police across those questions across the entire borough, and how that compares with the rest of London. And I say I'll stop sharing and come back. I know that was quite a whistle stop tour of presentation, and just giving an idea of the situation. And so, and if I get invited back, and for next time, just get a bit of an idea of what people would like in that sort of presentation going forward as well. Sorry, it's the first time I've done it. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to produce, or any further information that you'd like me to give to you, then please let me know, and I can do that for next time. And I know there's a couple of hands up. Agatha, and sorry, and I'm not sure who it says. NTCG Dayspring. I'm not sure.
Yes, it's Sharon. Sorry.
Oh,
I think my hand went up before Councillor Agatha's, so I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah, just two things. One, I know this happened in Hackney, and Hackney is not the same as Pollard's Hill, etc., Merton. But what is being done in your division to ensure we don't have a repeat of what happened in Hackney with girl Q? That's one. And two, how can you safeguard against that, or reassure us that you are safeguarding against that happening? And two, how do you see the church and the police working together? What can the church do, in your estimation, to help what you do, to complement what you do?
Yeah, so I was working in Hackney before I came to the Southwest and Merton on promotion, so I am familiar with the circumstances of that. It should never have happened. I think there will be I to say stop it happening again. I can't believe it happened. I don't think the school was totally blameless within it, with the situation with the officers, the way the officers were called to somebody who had already been searched for cannabis, and then the school still believed they had on them, and then the officers had to go in and pick that. I'm not making excuses. They weren't safer schools officers who work in the schools. We have safer schools officers embedded who work really closely with the schools, and are slightly more experienced and have that extra experience of dealing with young people and earn the trust. There's guidance around strip searches, how they should be completed. It's being reinforced. The training's going back out there. Everyone's getting the guidance has been recirculated. I think the publicity around it, I don't think officers would do it again. There are so many safeguards in place. It's just sometimes you can't allow for people's, I don't want to say stupidity, but it feels like that we can put everything in place, and then someone goes, and it breaks my heart, because it affects trust and confidence within within the community, and particularly within the Black community, where our trust and confidence is fragile at the best of times, and it really has a damaging effect on that. You're totally right. We have 2 faith officers who work full-time faith officers within Southwest, who engage with our faith, with churches, mosques, synagogues, within all of the religions, and they are working closely with us to build those relationships with churches, and you know, and it's getting the good work recognised as well, because we could all the good work that we do, and positive community interactions, faith engagement, community engagement, it is all the good work is undone by a couple of officers on one incident. And I say there are safeguards in place. I say within schools, I know within Hackney that there's now a bit of a resistance to police officers being in school. I'm not getting that sense within our boroughs. I feel that we do have within a lot of the schools good working relationships, and I really want to continue that. And I would be confident that it wouldn't happen again. I think the publicity with both internally and externally, that I don't think any officers would do anything of that nature again. Who was next? Was it Agatha?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I'll talk about Merton. What will happen in Merton is at the moment, the cabinet member for education and myself are trying to look into safeguarding in the schools, the police in the schools, to make sure that things are as they should be and things like that don't happen in this borough. You know, we know we've got good policemen in there, but you have to reassure ourselves that they are genuinely doing what they're supposed to, and they will be genuinely following the safeguarding. The schools should be following the safeguarding. I can't fathom why the school in Hackney, they did not follow safeguarding and were allowed such a thing to happen. So I think a lot of the boroughs are having spoken to other cabinet members in various boroughs. They are also taking on board to have a look and make sure that their safeguarding are appropriate and carried out, and also with the police as well. So I think it sort of spooked a lot of people, because you know what we were hearing outside, that this is not the only case. I don't know what is, but if there's more cases in different boroughs, then there's going to be a real issue of losing confidence in the Black community, because what the Met is trying to do is sort of gather confidence and be able to associate themselves and mix with the ethnic and various communities, but it's not a very good way of doing it, or showing people that you can do it. So and we have to be very open and straightforward. You know, things happen. People have the idea that things happen, and the police cover up for each other. So you know, until we lose that sort of idea that the police are covering up for each other, it's very difficult. You know, we try to defend the police. In my position, you know, try to defend them because we've got good police officers here. But when you get, you know, 1 or 2 that come up, or 3 or 4 that come up, and there's been other issues with violence against women, it makes it difficult for people to actually think. They know there's good police officers there, but the more it keeps coming up, they think there's something not right. So I think, you know, and they feel that they just take anybody into the police service now. They don't check background, check them, and they just accept people. I know we're desperate for it. So we have to reassure people that these things are not so, and we will, you know, sort of look at things in a better light. I did want to ask you, stop and search. Did we not give notes or leaflets or a receipt to young people when they're stopped and we stopped that?
So no, they should. We used to fill out the stop and search pad, but now that they've gone to tablets, they should just. We were giving out like little slips to say that you had been stopped and searched with a reference number on, So they should still get those. And we are going, what will be launched shortly is also a QR code. So when someone is stopped and searched, they'll have the police officer will have a QR code that can be scanned on the young person's phone, which will go to a Know Your Rights page. So we used to give out the Know Your Rights leaflets as well. But I think like we're trying to move with modern technology. You know, people don't want pieces of paper, so just a QR code.
I think it's a bit, yeah, I don't believe in that QR code, but that's me personally. Yeah. But I just think, because I was speaking to a parent today who was quite distraught, their son was stopped, you know, and 16-year-old, he was stopped. And no, they didn't explain why. I said, I'm sure they explained it, but they gave him no sort of paperwork and nothing, just stop him. You know, and he's never, I think he's a good boy, so never been stopped, but he was quite shocked and quite surprised. Yeah. He should, and a bit upset about it.
He should be offered a copy of the.
Yeah, that's what I said. They should. So I'm glad. That's what I just wanted to ask you, so I can actually tell them that it's still going. Because I said to her, it is to happen. Well, obviously, it's not happening. So I think you should enforce the officers that they must do it, because at least the parents know why their children have been stopped.
Yeah. And we do.
If you're trying to get good communication and win the words and win the people over, you're not doing a good job by not doing that. So we must.
100%.
Yeah.
And we do have the community monitoring group in place who scrutinise stop and searches and regular meetings and come in and do body worn video viewings as well at the police station, randomly selected stop and search to see how the police officers behave, and body worn video as well making officers more accountable. And we do have really like in the high 90s for 90%, high 90% compliance rate with officers using body worn videos. Was it Councillor Henry or Grace? I'm sorry, I didn't see whose hand went up next.
Well, I'll jump in there quickly.
Yeah, it was Grace. Yeah, Grace.
Like Councillor Agatha, I think the police do a phenomenal job, really, an excellent job. And it's always a few bad eggs that really ruin it for everybody else. But I still want to bring to light, obviously, the child's queue and what came into the media this week on the back of Daniel Morgan's case, which was they found the police to be institutionally corrupt and shocking. And with Cressida Dix stepping down, you know, obviously perhaps things that the police could look at is training and you know, integrity and going back to the drawing board and looking at themselves internally. But going back to your statistics with stop and search, you talked about the white boys is 1.2 on average, black boys 4 in every 1,000 get stopped. Yeah. And I think in Merton you said 99 were stopped. It'd be interesting to drill down and just to know, of that 99, were any of them justifiable? Were they justifiable? I mean, it's okay to say stop and search, but what was the outcome? So that, you know, we can see whether our concerns are genuine or actually 99 were caught with, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be good to know, because you see, because it's about, you know, knowing the reality behind, we would then be able to look at our approach and our integrity.
So those figures are available. I just didn't know how much detail to go into for this meeting. And what the figures do show in general is that the outcome rates are pretty similar. In around the 25-26% mark for both black and white people, younger people, is that will be where something is found will be in about a quarter of all the cases.
So basically, you're saying 75 of those 99 basically were stopped unnecessarily. So it shows that we do need to go back to the drawing board and look at the whole rationale behind.
I think there is a whole. We could spend hours talking around stop and search and the pluses and the minuses.
Yeah, and just one more thing about the child queue, because it is not just an emotive, it's raw, it's personal to so many of us around this table who have children and who have girls. I mean, we take it like this happened to our own children. It's quite traumatic. But in terms of the police officers and the teachers involved, the decision to not make it a criminal or to put them in the spotlight to protect their identity, I think is really quite shocking. And this is the problem. This is where the police form that wall of protection around the police, and therefore we don't seem to be able to make any steps forward, because actually there should be a criminal offence. There should be a criminal situation, not just an inquiry. We've had a lot of Stephen Lawrence inquiry, Macpherson inquiry. So many inquiries happen in this country. And it's like another trauma, because we have another inquiry, and actually there should be a prosecution.
They are under investigation.
Yeah. Okay.
By the IOPCs, which is separate to see what it was. At the moment, I think it is a misconduct inquiry as opposed to like a criminal investigation. But the IOPC, if there are criminal offences.
Yeah, I mean, many of us thought that is a criminal offence that happened.
Yeah.
It's not a conduct. This is not this is not about not being professional. A crime was committed against a child on this occasion, and we need to call it out for what it is, actually. And again, this is the wall of protection that I feel the police often build around themselves. They build this secret, and therefore we never really get to the bottom of what really, is going on, or the perpetrators seem to go scot-free.
So I don't know what the parameters of the whole incident will be investigated by the IOPC, which is independent. So it's not police investigating police; it's an independent. Yeah. And if there are criminal offences that are identified, then that is that will be pursued.
Okay. Thank you,
Councillor Henry.
I thank you. And
now listen before Joan comes. We are running out of time and we still have Ben to come on. So Joan, please make it quick.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Skeet. Okay, thank you for your presentation. I just want to say I was a special constable 1996 to 2011. And during my time, we had training every 6 weeks. We have to train again with the regulars on different occasions, different topics. And I'm just wanting to find out if our present police officers are going through any further training after leaving training school. Because as far as I can see and understand and learning, it doesn't seem like they are getting update training. And this is really bad because, our officers are not really performing the way like we were training school. As soon as it appears to be, when they come in the road, they just do their own thing. They're not going towards what they were trained as.
No, I'll just deal with that very quickly. I know Councillor Skeet. I joined in 1996 and I had training every 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's not happening at the moment. Mm. There's not the time. There's only a limited number of training days built into the police roster per year, and it's not sufficient. It isn't sufficient.
I think that's something we need to start looking to. Then we'll have better police officers, because I tell you, even during those days, we used to have a little bit bias in things, but the officers weren't as, I don't know if they're scared now, or they're just bossy, or just the uniform, let me feel, well, I'm powerful, I can do what I want to do. And I'm going to bring you to something about 2 months ago. My grandson went football. He came home and he said, Nan, I'd like to get a charger for my phone. He went out to get a charger. And, I said, hey, he has me back. Then I heard my door knock. When I realized there was about 6 police officers outside with my grandson in handcuffs. I said, what is this for? And he was so upset, he started to, really make noise. And he said, Nan, I went to buy the charger. I was walking towards Mitcham Town Centre. Then these officers jump on me, where I'm going, wanted to search my bag. I said, why? Cut story short, they searched, they didn't find anything, but they decided to put handcuff on him. Anyway, when they brought him in, I said to them, come inside my house, sit in my chair and tell me what happened. At the end of the day, they do apologize to him and say that, okay, that was an area where drugs area are, and they were just, they searched him and he was making noise. So therefore they put him in the handcuff and put him in the vehicle. Suppose I wasn't at home, what would they have done? Take him to the police station, and 6 officers. So these are the things that we want to, ask our police station, try to listen to the children sometime when they talk to them, and not only, judge them or thinking that, okay, they are doing the right thing and the child is wrong. I'm happy that they brought him home, and I'm happy that we have a good conversation, and I'm happy that they listen to what I was saying, and they apologized to him. They apologized to me, and my child apologized to them of swearing at them. So we just need to have, something need to happen. We need to get some change.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I say, for next time, if there is anything that you want, like a deeper dive into whether stop and search or anything like that, if you let Everett know, and she can tell me what you want, and I'll leave you to finish the rest of your meeting. But thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Pronounce your name. Scamil.
Scamil, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Well, Ben, I'm very sorry. You have waited and waited and waited, but now it's your turn.
I'm just mindful of the time. It's 9:20. I don't know, you had 6 presentations. I think I'm better off to send you our service brochure. And if you have questions, you can send emails to me, but I think there's no point at almost 9:30 in the evening to give you another 20-minute presentation. I don't think it's quite useful. Is that okay? Yeah, I'll send you the brochure, and if you have questions, you can send me an email, please.
Send it to Everett, and then we can email or text you or call you and ask your questions.
Okay.
Ben, you can always come back.
You can come back to the next meeting.
For the next midnight session at 10:30 then, yeah?
Trying to dodge out of your session, you can always come back.
Yeah, these people got lots of questions.
Come back to the next session, I'll put you at the top of the agenda.
No, let's see. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, let's put him at the top. Bye-bye. Bye. Any other business? I hope none.
No.
Well, good night. It has been a very packed meeting. We tried some cases tonight, but I think it was edifying. Thank you very much for attending, and see you later.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Okay, good night. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. Cheers now. Bye.
Good night. Good night.
Bye. Good